Hello guys, welcome to my session. In this session, we'll be learning um, about normalization. And let us start our session on normalization. You can see I'm going to be using the following table that I came up with in order to explain in practical terms um, all the steps that are involved in normalization. Okay, so let's start by understanding what normalization does. Um, so normalization is basically when we are taking data and normalizing it into different tables so that it can be relational, right? This will make sure that we avoid anomalies such as insertion, updating, and deletion anomalies. I'm going to explain some of those things very quickly. And the standard acceptable normalization these days from where we are is for you to normalize your tables all the way to that normal form. So we've got three different forms that we're going to learn about today, which is the first normal form, which focuses on single atomic values, and each row have a unique identifier that simply means that each row must have a primary key. Then we'll move on and talk about second normal form, which makes sure that we satisfy all the rules for for first normal form. Then we can then move and try to make sure that there is no partial dependencies. On third normal form, we are simply saying you need to make sure that it's on second normal form, which means it must be on first, then on second. Then we will focus on removing transitive dependencies, like making sure that we remove the dependency of non-key attributes, like removing dependencies that are not primary keys from another table. So we'll see this English, how it gels together with the practical part. So let us assume the following example. This is a spreadsheet which I created, but we're going to assume that this spreadsheet is being used by a movie rental company in those days where we used to rent out movies. So you can pick up your own example and try to figure out what can you do with it. So on this particular table, we can see that it's a single table that contains a lot of information. We can see the movie that the people will be renting out, or the movies that have been rented out. We can see the categories which those movie falls under. We can see the duration of the movie. We can see the customer name of the person who rented out the movie. We can see the address of the customer, phone numbers of the customer. In this case, I just made it shorter and together with the price. So let's go and try to make sure that we satisfy the first normal form, which means that we do not have double values or more than one value in a single cell. What that means is that you will look at your table like this and check if there is a possibility of having more than one value in a cell. For an example, our very first customer here has rented out which from Tembisa, this is their phone number. They've rented out two movies, which is Drunken Master and Halloween. You can see that these are clearly two movies because even on the category, those two movies do not fall in the same category. So now each cell here is containing more than one value, which goes against the rules for the first normal form, which says each and every cell must contain a single value. Right? So the minute you start having double values, then you must know that you're dealing with something else. Then we will then ask ourselves, how then do we resolve this situation? So to resolve this situation, I will do the following. I'll copy the following table and put it in a new spreadsheet just to show you how it will look like now. Here's the font here that you can see also. Okay, so I've just repeated that table here. I just want to make sure that we understand this was the initial table. So moving now to the new table that we're going to create. So how do you resolve having double values? You resolve this by making sure that each and every cell contains a single value. So I'm going to do an insert here and make sure that I insert a movie called Halloween, whichever one you decide to start with is okay. So that means this will be a horror movie. We're not sure, maybe we can estimate because I made a mistake that didn't include the additional time that we did that day. So we can estimate and say this was going to play for 130 minutes. Who ordered the movie or who's renting out the movie is still in Mpo, who stays in Tembisa, and the cell number for Mpo is still the same. And we're just going to put Halloween at 50. That means that we are no longer required to include Halloween on this first column. We're no longer required to include horror at this other column. And we're no longer required to put plus 50 there to show that there are two movies. So our new table ends up looking like this. Remember, we are trying to satisfy the first normal form, which says single atomic value in each column. So that one part is done. So now we have to deal with each row have a unique identifier. That means we must have a primary key. Now you can see we cannot use the name of the movie as a primary key because already there are chances that the movie can repeat. So what we're going to do, I'm going to do another insert. And then on this insert, I can just say rented movie ID. Yeah, so this will be rented movie ID. We can just say this is ID rented movie 01. This will be the first movie to be rented out. Rented movie 02. Then rented movie 03. Rented movie 04. Just coming up with these primary keys, guys. Rented movie 05. So all in all, we've got 5 movies that have been rented out, as you can see. So let me just modify my table. But it's okay. So now my table end up looking something of this. Right? That one you must keep in mind how our table is looking like at this stage. Looks like this. This was the original one. We have now removed the atomic values and we have made sure that there is a unique identifier. So this means that we are done resolving the issues of first normal form. We just put this back to nothing. I should just include it together with this. I'm not very familiar with not really familiar with Microsoft Excel, so you give me for that part. But I'm sure you can see what we're trying to get to. So that is for first normal form. So going to second normal form, we have to separate the entities. So let's check what second normal form says. It says specify all the rules for first normal form. Our table is already on first normal form. It then says partial dependence must be removed from the table. So we're going to make sure that our table no longer contains partial dependency. So copying now the details of this table, all of it. So the way I could have done that. Right, let's link these things to the profession. Okay, so I'm going to copy this table as it is. I'm going to move it to another spreadsheet this time. I'm going to show you what we're going to do with that spreadsheet. On this spreadsheet, we're going to separate the entities according to what we want. So how many entities can we see? We can see movies, we can see customers, right? So let's separate movies and customers. So I'm going to have one here called movies name, and then we will also have duration of the movie. Okay. We'll have the category. the movie. So we have to list all the movies that we see here. So the first movie we see is Drunken Master. The second movie we're seeing is Halloween. And we have another movie called Get Out. And you can see Get Out repeat. So since we already have Get Out, we don't have to repeat it here because here we're listing all the movies. So last one is Fellas. Then we're just gonna write their durations here. First one is 120. Halloween is been given 130. 180 for Get Out. Then 210 for Goodfellas. And then in terms of categories, we're going to write the categories they belong to. Drunken Master being given action. Action is the category for Drunken Master. Yeah. So action for the first one, and then horror for most of this. Horror for Halloween, horror for this one. Goodfellas again on action. Okay, we'll come back to this table and deal with it later on. But this is just one of the tables that we have. Let's go create another additional table here, which is speaking about the customer. For customer, we've got customer name. And then we also have the address of the customer. We have the phone of the customer. This is all the things that are related to a customer. For one of the customer we have info. We also have window. We also have Elsa and Vivo. These are all the customers we have. And as for their location, Paul is staying in Tembisa. Gundo is staying in Randbeck. And then Cheza is staying in Pretoria. Then lastly, Livo stays in Centurion. Okay. And as for their phone, Livo is using 3652. Cheza is using 1254. And Gundo is using 8523. And we have 89564. And once again, these are not actual details, these are just dummy details that I came up with. So now that we've put our two tables, we now need to recognize that movies are not necessarily linked to a category in this fashion. So what we'll end up having, we'll end up having an additional table here called, we're just gonna say category ID, and then we'll mention the category. Maybe this will be category ID 1, category ID 2, category ID 3. First category we can mention that this is action. On the second category we can mention that these are horror movies. And then if there are more categories, you can list those categories as you wish. So this becomes another additional table that we've popped up with, right? Let me just make sure that I'm formatting this table in a manner that we will both understand. So that means that when you arrive at this table for category, for movies, it no longer requires you to have category. It will require to have what we call category ID, right? So now we're shifting also from just second normal form. We've done the partial dependency, we've separated all the dependencies. We're going now to that normal form, which allows us to have transitive dependencies only, to remove also the transitive dependencies. So here we are now with a table which contains all the movies. In terms of category ID, we no longer have to write action. We have to look which number represents action here, number 1, and which number represents horror, 2, 2, and for action again it's 1. So the table for movies, all in all, looks like this. Right? This is the table for movies. And then the table for customer, all in all, looks nothing special. And then we have an additional table for categories of the movies that looks like this. Remember how far we're coming from. We're coming from this table, and then we shifted it to make sure that it is on first normal form. It's now sitting. This table is already in first normal form. We now have to just make sure that even these other external tables that you see here satisfying first normal form. Remember, first normal form requires that you must have a primary key. Each row must have a unique identifier. So in this case, if I can just say insert a table here, then I put and I say we're looking for movie ID. Create a key called movie ID, and then on customer we create customer ID. So for movie ID, you can just say movie 1, movie 2, movie 3, and this will be movie number 4, right? Then on customer, we can just say customer 1, customer 2, customer 3, customer 4, right? So this allows us to have, this is now a complete table. Also now a complete table which specifies the rules for first normal form and second normal form. So both these tables are specifying first and second normal form. We're just left with making sure that what is left now when we have these tables. So let's list this table down as they are one by one. So this will become your other table, right? I'm just going to copy the details of this table, take it to this side. And take it a second. Yeah. I'll put it here and I'll say movie ID. Let me increase the size so that you guys can see. Movie ID, movie name. Next up is duration. Just repeating those tables because this is the final stage now. Duration and category ID. Okay, so there we go. We now have our 4 movies listed out, and they're satisfying our first instruction. Okay, so as for the other table, we'll go back again and copy another table. We'll copy category at this stage. This one I can copy it as it is. There is no issue at all. I can copy category, come paste it here. It will still look okay. And then put this on this one. Format this table so that also looks similar to the other one. The text for this start in the beginning. We must happen for this table. Okay, we're looking now for our third table, which will be the customers. Copy this, paste it this side. Just insert another tab here. So this will be customer ID. Customer names, address, and phone. This looks easy. I am now just going to make sure that this also looks similar to the other table. And so that the text also for this one starts in the beginning. Okay, so what is the actual final table? The actual final table with this will be the table which is left behind, which is the table for combining customer, the movie that is rented with the price. Right? So that table will look something like this. I'm going to put it here. We will say we will look for we'll say movie rented. I think we're calling it movie rented. Let's check. Yeah, we said movie rented. Remember, we came up with this somewhere here, right? So we're basically just copying this movie rented. That this movie rented out, and we're pasting it out here, right? Movie rented, and they've got their own IDs. From there, we need to mention which movie has been rented. So we have to pick it up from movie ID, right? Which movie has been rented as the first movie. Right from there, we'll link up that movie with what we call customer ID. Right from there, we just have to look at the price for that movie. You no longer need to have other unnecessary information in our final table. So this becomes our final. This is the operational table. So on this one, we will have we'll relate back to the previous table. Check Draken Master is the one that is rented. Which number represents Draken Master? We go check. Draken Master is represented by M1. Then we'll check who ordered this movie or who rented this movie out. Go back to the table. Drunken Masters was ordered or has been rented out by Mpo. What number represents Mpo? Go check under customer table. Mpo is represented by P1. So P1, and what is the price for renting out this movie? You can check it in the beginning. It's for this first one, Dragon Master is actually 30 Rand. So when we come back here, we can put our 30 here. We'll do the same here. We rented movie number 2. We can say it's Mpo again. And no, it's not Mpo. We're looking for the movie. It's M2, but still being rented out by P1, which is Mpo, and the price shifts to 50. So the same will now go to Get Out. In this case, it's M3. Check the initial part. Get Out has been rented out by Gundo and Cheza. Gundo and Cheza, in terms of our table, this side are following each other. So that is C2 and C3. So we'll have M3, which is our movie, is Get Out. It's been rented by customer number 2 together with customer number 3. So their price is the same. I think we put this price at 50. Lastly, it will be movie number 4, which has been rented out by customer number 4, and we were saying the initial price for this movie was 70. There we go. So now this becomes your final table of operation. Like that. So it's as easy as that, guys. You don't have to doing a lot of things. I'm just gonna make sure that all of these things they start at the beginning of the sentence. So that long table that we found in the beginning, one has been turned by a manner of normalization to become the table. Now, when I was saying normalization is important, consider that we are here and we needed to change the address of Mpo, right? Or wanted to change the category for Get Out. That means if this list was Get Out, so that we change it from horror to change it from horror to a different category we want. But now with this, we don't have to be searching that far. We can just easily go to the movie table, only that movie table, and we change it to say, by the way, Get Out is now changing from category 2, it's now going to be in category 3, which is in comedy. Right? We don't have to inform the other tables of what we've done. They will be aware of what has just been done. So that's basically how we implement normalization, and I've tried to simplify it in this fashion. Now let's see how will you implement this now, because once you have normalized from here and you now have this up to that normal form, you can then practically implement this table. So what I will normally do, I will navigate to my SQL Server Management Studio. I'll just say movie rental as the name of my database. And I'll start creating those tables. So I can start with the one for category. Now, some of the numbers that I've been dealing with on that other side might not appear nicely this side. I'm going to set this one as a primary key. I'm going to set it up as an identity. So this is category. I'm just going to write cat G. Okay, my table for category has been listed here. So now we need to create another table which is simple, is customer. There we go. Almost done with the customer table. Same thing will apply here. I'll set this one up as a primary key, change this to become an integer, and tick all of this to make them a requirement. And then on customer ID, I'm going to change it so that it's also identity increment has been set to 1. So this is for customer. So now I'm left with 2 more tables. So if I refresh here, and now I have category and customer, which on based on my Excel spreadsheet, it's just this table and this table, which are not listed. Let's go see how can we make this table. So this is the movie table. Let's check again. Movie ID, movie name, duration, and category. But for category, you can't call it category now because, as we said here, comes category ID. Setting up the validation keys. Okay, so I've set up as a primary key already. Just need now to set it up as an identity. So movie full name, variable character, duration, I can use integers. Category ID is an integer. So if I save this table as movie, and I go to this specific key and I say right click, set up the relationship, add the relationship, go to the table and column specification, select from the category table, pick up a key called category ID, link it up together with the one I'm calling category ID. Okay, close, save. It will warn me that I'm making changes to two tables, then that will work. But if you're struggling to get that working, you can always go to tools, options, and check that under designers, you have unticked this last part, which is called prevent changes. That will require table creation. You have to untick it for that to work. Okay, let me refresh. I now have a new table called movies. And then I will then go show you now the new table. This is our last table, which is found on that normal form, which on this one we're saying it's rented ID of integer type. Then we've got the movie ID. Then we've got the customer ID. Lastly, we had price. Okay. So the rest of these are just integers, because all of these are just keys from another table. That's why they are now integers. Okay, I'll set this one as the primary key. I will even it up as identity specification, keep it like that. Okay, so we can save this table of ours as entered. Then we can go to movie ID, right click and say add relationship. Press add, you need two relationship for this one. So for the first one, go to column and table specification. We tell it pick it up from the movie table. Pick up the key called movie ID. And this side is called movie ID. Second one, go to the table called customer, sub customer ID, and also on this side called customer ID. Close the save. Now it's telling you saving into three tables. So all in all, our views log in once more. All in all, our views are easy to maneuver around. In my server now, I look into that database. There it is. So once I say on the air, you can see that it brings up my four tables. And easily list them down there. See what is connected to what. And that's the end of our normalizations. If you have any issues, please leave the question on the comments. Don't forget to subscribe so that we have more people watching.